What's up, everybody? Welcome to CFP Talks. My name is Joe Nissom. With me, as always, is my main man, Mr. David Fuchs.
What's up, baby?
David, how are you?
I'm good. I'm actually in the midst of changing my background.
Let's see.
I
Let's
need
see what it
it's
is.
gonna be different. It's gonna be a different
It went from
same.
game day, sponsored by the Home Depot. Nothing like good old
I
Home
hope this one
Depot up on the
works. I hope this
screen.
one works. This is my shit.
Ooh, not the SEC that you guys are worried about. The
Mm,
other SEC.
Yeah. No, like so this is an ode to the again, we talked about college football. We're about right now, we're a couple weeks into the season, but when we're recording this, it's the week leading up to it. This is an ode. The SEC is not on CBS anymore. This which was like that's the I love the SEC on CBS, but it's done now. Now the Big Ten's on CBS. So I just wanted to give a little shout out and a little ode to the SEC on CBS. RIP. That was the best shit ever.
Oh
And
man.
shame on college football for taking that away from us. Seriously, shame on them.
Well, I kind of feel the same way about the NBA taking away inside the NBA. Like
Yeah.
it's like my favorite show that they do. Like so sad.
Stupid.
I
It's like
really
some things, like honestly, I get it. It's them, follow the money, obviously, as with everything. And um, there's contracts and different stuff, commitments, and I totally, totally, especially now as I'm an adult, like I totally get that. But there's some things in these sports and outside of sports too, but there's just some things that are like so sacred that I wish that you know, and it's a lot to say. I wish they could put money aside. It's easy to say that when it's not your bank account, but you know, I really do wish some of these things they would put it aside and keep the pageantry of some of these sports traditions, like inside the NBA, like the SEC on CBS.
yeah.
There's just some things, man.
Yeah, it kind of sucks because you're taking it away from the fans. And like, there's the amount of like joy that some of those things bring to people. It's like such a shame. And obviously you're right. It's like when it's you're not your bet, you have no idea what's going on in those negotiations. They
Exactly.
could be trying to preserve those institutions. It may have not worked out. The one graceful thing about inside the NBA is like they get to go out while they're on top.
Yeah.
Like nobody's arguing, everybody's happy. Like it kind of sucks when it ends that way, but I guess better than them having like falling out and contract issues and people getting bitter at other people, and like they get to go out and they kind of get to do this farewell season on their own terms, which is kind of
Yeah.
good. But wow, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about today, does it?
It's all right. People love this. It's all good. But yeah, I mean, listen, we're a month out. We're a
Yeah.
month out. Okay. We're recording this in October in August, but this is gonna come out in the beginning of October. We're about a month out from the November cycle. My least favorite cycle, I have to say.
Hmm.
And reason is because that's when I did not pass. But
Yeah.
we're a month out.
Oh, I think it's a really bad cycle because you're coming off the summer and
Yeah,
it takes
exactly. You're
everybody forever to get into the swing.
100%. 100%. And you people got weddings. It's football season. Work is typically busy around this time. So November cycle sucks, but November cycle just sucks. And
They all
the
kind of have a thing though, don't they?
they do. The March is good. The March is probably the best
Well,
one
I mean, you're
because
coming off the holidays, right? So one,
yeah.
you're coming off the summer, the other, you're coming off the holiday season, and the other is like dead in the middle of summer.
Yeah, the July, I know people took the July exam recently, last couple of months a lot. We personally know a lot of people that passed it, but I don't know if I'd really want to be taking that, the week
It's
after
the
July.
it's the hardest one to study for. I
Yeah,
think
because
the March one is
wait,
the easiest to study
me
for.
too. I agree. I agree because it's in
There's
the dead of winter. What else are you doing?
Exactly. There's
So,
nothing to do in January and February anyway, so
exactly.
just put on your
Right.
sweatpants and study.
Right. So, but regardless, I hear this, you hear it more than me, but about a month out is when, and I remember thinking this when I was studying for the exam both times. You start studying like 3 months in advance and you're like, oh, I have so much time. I have like an ocean's worth of time ahead of me to prep for this thing. And then all of a sudden, it's like a month out and you're like, I only have 4 weeks left. And whether you are on schedule or not, whether you are ahead of schedule, behind schedule, regardless, your first reaction is going to be, damn, I have a month left. That's not that much time. It sounds like it is, but it's not. I'm starting to freak the fuck out.
Nothing scarier than that. Oh my God, I am 1 month out, especially when it's in the same calendar month. This is
Yeah.
nice because at least you're right now, you're at the beginning of October. You
Yeah,
still
you have the whole month.
you have a month before the calendar turns because once the calendar turns, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But I think this is for most people, this is when the rubber meets the road. This is the when you really are at a heightened level of attention. And I think this is kind of and for some people, this is interesting because there's a couple of different reactions to this. For some people, this is when they get focused. Like the pressure gets them going. For other people, this is when you panic and you start falling apart and you going in 100 different directions. And either way, whether you're panicking or not panicking, you still got to put a game plan together for this last month. And you got to figure out what you're going to do because even if like that pressure gets you to focus, you're going to still panic at some point because you're going to go, I think I can get all of this done in this time frame, and then you're going to hit a hiccup, which inevitably you're going to do, and it's better if you hit that hiccup sooner rather than later. And I know that for me it was like, oh, I'm going to do 6 chapters this weekend. And then I would go and I'd do it and I get 3 done and I'd be like, oh, fuck. Like I'm so behind now. And now I'm playing this game that I'm so behind and now I'm behind for the rest of the schedule. Instead of revamping it and saying, okay, I got to start kind of making decisions as to what I'm going to cover and what I'm not. And if I end up getting through this, then I'll come back to it. But if you're playing that behind game, it's just stress. It's just stress. Like
Yep.
from the
100%.
beginning to the end, it's just stress.
100%. And you got to know also, listen, like here's one thing that I just remember when the calendar turned and I realized I had 4 weeks left. It's like when you're on vacation, like when I was a kid and we go on vacation, we go for a week, right? The days would fucking fly by. I always be like, oh, we still got like 6 days left. Nice. Like have so much time. Like 5 days left, so much time. And all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, we're leaving tomorrow. That flew by so fast. And I always knew it was gonna fly by like that. Like I remember we go to the beach, the Jersey Shore, for the weekend or for the week in August as a kid. And
Mm.
like I just remember those days would fly by and I always knew they would fly by and I would do everything I can to preserve it. There's nothing you can do. These days are going to fly by. You need to know that they're going to fly by. And like Joe said, have a plan to make the most of that time. Because right now, when you start off, you have so much time. It's more about let me put together a good plan and let me put the right time in. Or let me put as much time in as possible. Now, the time's gonna go by so fast. Time is your biggest asset. You need to learn to manage that time really well and know, all right, this is what I'm going to be doing every day, every hour when it comes to studying, at least for the next month. And here's how I'm going to get to exam. Like you have to really have a well-ran ship these last few weeks.
Yeah, and whatever your plan is, shrink it by 30%. Cut it down by a third. So if you're like, okay, here's what I'm going to do this week. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Let's pretend you're going to go through 10 units in CFP. So like every day I'm going to sit down, I'm going to do 2 units, right? Which is or 2 subtopics, I should say. So, for example, if I'm going through investment and investment's broken into 10 subtopics, then over the course of this week, I'm going to take on 2 subtopics a day. By the end of the week, I'll be done with the 10 subtopics. I'm also going to do some review time and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. Whatever you think that is, multiply that by zero point 0.7, whatever that is, because no matter what, you're always going to overestimate what you can get done in a shorter period of time. We always tend to underestimate what we can get done in a longer period of time. I don't know if you've ever heard this quote. Most people way overestimate what they can do in a week and way underestimate what they can do in a year.
Yeah. I think I heard that from you.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll Michael Scott that one. But I'll take credit for it, but it's not mine.
Yeah.
But but whatever you think you can do, chop it down, because you're gonna start to realize that if you do that, you're gonna do a rush job. Yes, you can get through all of those 10, but now you're sitting there, and every time you're sitting there and doing it, it's just you're rushing, you're rushing, you're rushing, you're rushing, you're rushing. So now all your understanding of the material is surface level. You find yourself going back and rereading and doing it again and again. I'm not understanding it. What the heck is happening? Holy crap. Ah. And then it turns into this like explosion of anxiety and you're freaking out, which it could be totally avoided by going, you know that this is going to go slow. Learning does not happen fast. It doesn't. Just because the calendar turned to 1 month, it doesn't mean that something clicks off in your brain where you now learn at an accelerated speed. It's just not going to happen. So for a lot of you guys who are sitting down, you're like, okay, this is my call to focus. Just remember something. You have a limited amount that you can handle after a day's worth of work. I know for me with after a day's worth of work, I know for me that limit is about 2.5, 3 hours,
Yeah.
and after that point, I'm going downhill fast. I get very, very tired. I my focus completely goes, and that is not, again, that is there's nothing wrong with that. Like that's just normal. That's our us as humans what we can handle in a day. Now, if you're under the impression that all of a sudden you're going to jack this up to studying 30 hours a week, you'll do it for a week. Maybe you'll do it for two because you're tough. You can do, but by week three, you're going to absolutely destroy yourself.
Yeah.
So kind of plan accordingly
Totally.
that whatever you think you can do, chop it down by a third and prioritize quality over the quantity. Meaning, go deep into those topics, go through examples, do your flashcards, repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat, because you're better off knowing, like we said, this is a classic 7 is better than 10. You're better off knowing 7 topics really, really well than trying to know 10 topics mediocre. Because if you get tested on
Yeah.
those 10 topics and you know them 50-50, well, you're going to probably get half of those right and half of those wrong. If you know 7 well, you're putting yourself in a position where you can get all those three that you didn't know. You get them all wrong, and you still the 7 you
And
know
be
well,
still,
you do
yes.
right. And you're
Yeah,
still far ahead of where you would be normally.
for sure. And I want to make one more point, and you said this, um, and it's true. It's 1,000% true. The final month, 4 weeks. 3 weeks are gonna fly by, and then the final week is gonna be so fucking slow because you're just gonna be like, get me to exam day, please. I want to take this exam. I want to get it over with. I want to pass this thing. That final week is going to be really, really slow. And it's going to be slow because you are just so ready and anticipating, and there's all these different feelings going on for you. It's going to go by slow. Just take it easy that week and just know that those feelings are going to come. There's nothing you can do about it. Just wait patiently for you to take that exam and you'll be fine.
100%. I mean, great point. It's like those 3 weeks fly, and that last week is like it's
I
Monday
remember. Yeah, no, I mean, I
and
remember
it's
I
Tuesday.
was I was scheduled to take it on a Friday, and that week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, could not have gone any slower.
Well, let me put it. Let me caveat that it went slow because you were starting to chop down your studying. But if you're planning on studying to the absolute last second, don't. Number one, do not do that. You know, for a lot of you guys, you're gonna want to go. I'm taking the exam on Monday, so I'm gonna take Friday off from work, and I'm gonna kill myself that weekend. I'm going to do 30 hours in the last 3 days. If 10% of your study plan is executed in 1% of the time, you have royally screwed it up. There's no way around it. And you think you're going to get a lot in, it is the oldest trick in the book. It is a tale as old as time. This is not a college exam. You do not get to cram 30 hours before CFP and then go in and spit it up on the exam. This is not that type of test. So whatever you think you're getting in those last couple of days, it's usually at the sacrifice of something else.
Yeah.
So you're net in the same place. So there's no sense in doing it. This is a scenario where cooler heads prevail. You have to use your sense more so than your grit. This is a classic work smarter and not harder type of thing where, again, logic would say if I study really hard going into the exam, that I will do better. Where reason and wisdom knows, hey, 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 you can only do so much as a human, back it off. You got to back it off so you're actually fresh and ready to take the exam. Because David, you and I both know we've talked to a lot of people like, I killed myself that last week. Oh my, and then I went into the exam and I completely bombed it. I
Yeah.
did worse on the exam than I did on any of my mocks. Well, yeah, you killed yourself. So you have no energy, you have no focus. Your nervous system needs to recover. There's actual legitimate science behind that. And no different than, again, I would not run a marathon the day before a marathon. I would be resting. And the same thing applies here. I just dealt with this with a student who's taking CFA, and I was like, okay, what's your plan the day before? And she was like, well, probably going to study the entire day. I said, well, why don't we wrap it up by about 12? She's like, I can't do that. I was like, you can. She's like, no, I can't do that. Like, it would just make me too nervous not to study. And I was like, I promise you, those last 8 hours are better off with rest than because what are you going to learn? Like, that's it. Like,
Yeah,
those
you're
last
not
eight
gonna
hours are
change.
going to be the ones that take
Yeah,
you
you're
over.
you're not you're not making a break in your exam on one study session.
But, again, it's really easy to let emotions go in the way and go, well, what if it's the two things that I reviewed that get me over? Those are the 2 points.
And that's valid. That's valid. That's
Okay.
totally valid.
Well, if you're relying on those last 2 points, you haven't studied properly anyway.
Exactly. Exactly. But I
So,
get where people will say that. They're like, oh, what if this is the one thing? What if this will get me over the hump? Yeah, you could say that theoretically, but if that's the case, then you probably botched the first 3 months of your studying.
exactly. And it's like, and it's a great, again, like emotions will say that, right? It's like working that if I just, if I work those last 2 hours of this shift, then, if I do 2 more hours of overtime, then I'm gonna have it's not the way plans work. Plans work because they're consistent, they're systematic. It's not those last efforts, a last ditch effort. It's like again, David, you said a lot. We relate it to sports. If you decide that you're not going to execute your game plan for 3 quarters and you're going to go, you know what? We're going to shoot 43s in this quarter. Well, if I don't shoot those last couple of threes, that might be the threes that win us the game. And you're going, that's not how it fucking works. Are you kidding me? You don't get to kind of just show up in the fourth quarter, and are there times where that works? Yes. Yes, there are times where that works. It is lucky and it is inconsistent and it is just a pure work of luck. That is not the way that something big is done, right? And and this is why they say, like, in especially in the NBA playoffs, in a 7 game series, you
The
get
best team
one
always,
lucky, yeah, you get one
the
lucky
best team
game,
wins. Yeah.
right? Like, you get one lucky game. The Dallas Mavericks had one game where they absolutely annihilated the Boston Celtics. Celtics came back, beat the hell out of them in game 5 and won the NBA finals, and that's it. It's like, again, you get this, And at over 170, again, 35 questions, you may get lucky. 40 questions, you may get lucky. 170, you will not. The exam will wear you down. So let's end on that. We hope this was helpful, everybody. As always, feel free to reach out to David or myself when the questions, comments, or concerns, and we will see you guys on our next episode. Take care, everybody.